Who's starting the quarterback?
We've gotten that a few times. Yeah. We've got a great situation. Both kids, when I was asked in the spring, listed a couple of their strengths. I think Drew's, he's been around. He knows offensive football, and Spencer is an eager young kid with great athleticism and arm strength. And what's been fun as a coach, you watch them this summer, and they've really accentuated some areas that might not have been listed as strengths. So I'm real excited to get going here, and I think whoever ends up leading us this year, I think we'll be in great shape.
Do you have a timetable about when you want to start it in?
Coach Gundy is not playing the media or being evasive. When we know the starter, we're going to name it. So there's a scrimmage, 10 practices in. I would guess that both kids would have ample opportunity after having a spring where we kind of rotated them and I gave them equal opportunity. Those 10 practices, I'm hoping, is very competitive and very a little bit less gentlemanly than the spring for the first 10 practices, and then once we get there after, we'll either have an answer or we won't. But it's not because we're trying to play any games. And
you've had a history in the past of maybe playing two quarterbacks even on the same play. Is that something that's open?
Well, we played 3 too at the same time. So yeah, no, that history at Princeton was just because those kids deserved to play. It wasn't gimmicky. It wasn't something that we were trying to fool people. It was because we had quarterbacks who were talented and worked their tail off and deserve an opportunity to get on the field just as if we were playing 2 tight ends at the same time. So yeah, that's part of my brain in history of football is playing multiple quarterbacks, but it's always whatever's best for the team. Yeah.
Drew and Spencer seem to have taken a liking to each other and learned from each other. What have you seen from them kind of going off each other?
Drew and Spencer, you said? I thought you said you and Spencer.
Oh, no.
I hope they don't like me
sorry,
too much right now. No, yeah, the thing, the social media video that was put out recently was a great indication. That they captured those 2 kids perfectly. They work hard, they compete. Like I said, the spring was a chance for them to kind of get a foundation in the offense and be around the ones for a little while, which with Taylor last year, he's a first-year starter. You're going to give him the bulk of the reps with the ones. So in the spring, we got him kind of equal amount of time playing with the ones, and we're hoping that the training camp battle is something that makes our whole team better and gives us an edge, because those 2 guys are just scratching and clawing, and I believe that'll be the case. But what's great about them, and you saw in the video, is that when that competition stops at the end of practice, or they're in the meeting room, or they're over at my house for barbecue, that they're just great kids. They rode home that night in the same pickup truck, so that gives you an indication how they feel about each other.
Now, you obviously have been here for a while now. Have you noticed the biggest difference between coaching at Princeton and coaching at LSU?
Yeah, I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm getting a little tired of the transition questions. It's time to coach football. That's what I was hired here for. I'm excited to get going in training camp, and there's a dry cleaner and a grocery store and all the comforts of life all over America. Once I figure that stuff out, which I have already, I got a great wife who gets us on good footing. It's not about me and Princeton or Oklahoma State anymore. It's about you were hired to do a job, to coach kids hard and score points, and that's what we're going to do this fall. So I appreciate the question, but I'm trying to move on from the transition stuff.
If you can you summarize your offensive style?
Sure. Some of the style is going to be very similar. So I felt like there was inherent in me coming here a lot of overlap between Oklahoma State and Princeton in the way that I think that modern football is played. But the 3 things that our guys are going to be nauseous hearing from me every single day is we want to be fast, physical, and hungry. And I think that you'll see that come out as it relates to the no huddle, the way that we compete, and I still think football is about moving people against their will, so there should be a physicality, an East Coast physicality to what we're doing, and then the motivational stuff, having some hunger is really important to me in this game. So I'm hoping those 3 things come out: fast, physical, and hungry.
Chuba is going to be a big part of what you guys do on the offensive side. What have you seen from him in the spring and in the summer?
He's a very confident kid. I know that he had some dynamic plays last year, but he's still relatively green. I mean, he shared some time last year, but you would never see it on his face. He is a great competitor. I love the way he works, and he's very humble. He wants to get better. He wants to be coached. So I think the sky's the limit for that kid, and hopefully a lot of the players in his group come along. I think having multiple running backs in your program is always an advantage. Kind of cycle some guys through and make sure that they're always fresh. But Chuba he's a great kid. I love coaching him. He's very, very humble and very hardworking.
How exciting is it to kind of be in control of an offense that has the weapons that you have in the skill positions?
Yeah, for sure. We just, the quarterback thing, which everyone's asking about, I want this place to be the place where the best quarterback in the country sits. And we won games at Princeton with that model. There's a guy in New England right now who's a pretty darn good quarterback who wins a lot of games because his play is better than everyone else's. So that's where we want to go. Right now, I think that our quarterback group needs to enhance and accentuate all the great playmakers that you guys are talking about. Chuba Hubbard, the Tylen Wallace's. We've got some really, really good skill kids. We just got to make sure, and Coach Gundy said it a little while back, we got to make sure that we don't turn the ball over and we don't make stupid decisions, and get those guys in space and let them score some points. But we will do that, and then hopefully as we get better and better at quarterback and more experience, and I get more experience here, that in Stillwater is the quarterback like they got in New England and like they have around the country, where they win a lot of games and that guy's leading the way.
The offensive line's been a bit of an issue the last couple of seasons. What do you think of that group and what you've seen so far?
Well, they're in Charlie Dickey's hands, so we're going to be in good shape. Some of the motivation that I have for this whole year are for guys in that group. Like Marcus Keys, for instance, and Johnny Wilson. They've been here a long time, so people want to talk. You got a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan. I got like a 30-second plan, and the reason is I want to make sure that those guys get my best because they deserve it. And I think beyond us kind of rallying around that group, like Marcus and Johnny, and putting our best foot forward for those guys, I think that there's a tremendous amount of growth so far in that group, and I would expect under Charlie's tutelage, they're going to do a wonderful job.
Are there some questions that you had that maybe even can't get answered until the first game of the season, or just about this offense?
Yeah, that's sports. Sport. I think there's a few lights in my face right now, but whenever those lights go on, I think you kind of find out a little bit about your team, a little bit about certain kids, and every year, whether you have returning players who have played a ton, there's always an environment, a scenario where people are going to get challenged. You hope that your practice habits and the intensity with which you go about your business, those lights go on and your guys respond the right way. So there'll be some growing pains and some things, but I would imagine that we'll that's a big part of who I feel like I am as a coach, is making sure that our kids perform. So, yeah.
What are some of the things that you do specifically to make sure that you're correct for training camp, you personally?
It's just about being prepared, making sure that you have all your ducks in a row. It's not too different than a teacher. As a teacher, one of my first jobs out of college, teacher getting ready to teach a class, making sure you got your syllabus and your materials ready to go. We have very strict rules by compliance, the amount of time that we get with the kids. So I think that making good use of the meeting time and having everything kind of laid out and a plan to implement the offense, and then giving kids feedback along the way on how they're performing is part of it all. So yeah, anticipating that a little bit and just making sure that everyone is kind of very clear on how the offense is going to get laid out in training camp, and some of the things that you want to get to that might be new or you might be polished up a little different way. So just the whole summer is really that. It's like research and then organization, and then now is the fun part. We get to teach the kids and watch them play.
Is there any player besides, the Hubbards and the Wallaces that people are familiar with that maybe they're not quite as familiar with that's standing out for you?
Yeah, I think the two Cowboy backs have had a great spring. Jelani and Logan, Jelani Woods and Logan Carter. They have done a great job. I know Logan, as a recent scholarship kid for us, started as a walk-on. So you just see the intensity that they have in that group, and they're coming along. Jelani was a position change guy, and but they did a great job in the spring, and I'm sure people are going to be happy to see the product that they put out as well.
Does it excite you to battle a lot of the Big 12 offenses that you're going to see, specifically with all the scoring that's gone on recently?
Yeah. I enjoy that. You know, when the possessions get skyrocketed up in the air and there's a lot of points being scored, that's where you want to be as an offensive coach, kind of intimate in among that company and you know, those games where it could come down to that Monday night game last year between the Chiefs and the Rams. That's kind of fun for an offensive coach. I'm not sure Coach Knowles wants to be in a game like that, but that's fun for an offensive coach, kind of battling back and forth and punches going back one after the other.
You feel like, as an offensive coach, being in the Big 12 in college, that's about as good as it gets, right?
Absolutely, and with Coach Gundy. That's I think, again, part of the reason I was so excited to come here was the offensive history, and then working underneath a guy that's been a head coach for as long as he has, and kind of seen everything from A to Z. I'm eager to learn everything that I can from him and help bring scoring football and championship football to Stillwater.
What have you seen out of his Coach Gundy's energy? He took a lot of ownership for what happened last year. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, that's what a great leader does, right? They kind of stand in the way of everything that's good and bad about the thing that they're in charge of. So he is unbelievable executive of the whole program. There's a lot of people, support staff, and things that make our group meetings, our staff meetings, a pretty bloated room, but he has a finger on the pulse of everyone's job, and it's just fun to watch him go to work, and he's got great perspective on recruiting. He's tremendous with the media. He does a lot of great things, and I think I said a little while ago, I thought I had some sort of privileged position having my office sit right next to his, but I think it's just because he can kind of come in and yell at me if I do something wrong. So, it's a little less about my stature and more proximity, I think, that makes that a good situation.
What kind of influence has Coach Dickey had on you so far?
In the spring, I was asked that question. He's a great resource. Some of the coordinators that are returning in the league, great resources to kind of maybe the way that they attempt to attack. They try to attack him at K-State. There's a lot of overlap. I mean, the run game, when you're a coordinator and you want to chit-chat about the run game, you go directly to the O-line coach. There's a lot of similarities between the way that I kind of hope the run game should look and the way that he thinks about it as well. So, but yeah, it's just having somebody in your corner who loves coaching technique, loves dialoguing, and whatever we end up conversating about. The thing that's fun about him is we go out to the field and he's full steam ahead with whatever we decided. It's not, there's no contentious things that carry over with Coach Dickey. He's a great human being, first and foremost, and I'm really thankful that he's here.
Be it fans, media, whoever, most people assume Spencer Sanders is going to be the quarterback based on his accolades coming out of high school, and the fact that Drew Brendan played all last year despite the offense struggling in some games. What is it about what Drew does that makes this a real race?
Yeah, I don't really get into the Spencer's this and Drew's that. We're searching for a quarterback, and they both, it happens all over the country. I know that each kid has their own story, but it's about the team. It's not necessarily like we're trying to play the thing a certain way. Drew and Spencer are in an equal race right now. And to answer your question about Drew's abilities, he's a football nut, and that doesn't mean that Spencer isn't. But Drew's just been around longer. I'm sure Spencer will, with more time, grow up and get coached longer. And Drew's been a part of 3 different staffs. So I think I said in the spring, he's got 3 different coaches all coaching the same plays. There's not too much different about football plays now. So he's got perspective on hearing it from 3 different voices. So that's fun to talk with him about that. And it's probably a little bit of an asset to him. Whereas Spencer's just had a coach for a year. He's now learning another language. Despite Coach Yursich and I and the similarities that we have, we probably talk a little bit differently. he's from Ohio, I'm from New Jersey. I don't have too much of an accent, but in football, we all speak a little bit differently. So Spencer's kind of was getting used to some of that in the spring. But this is an even race. We're looking for a quarterback who is going to be competitive, intelligent, and accurate. That's, CIA. That's kind of like what I think about 3 most important things about quarterback play. I need a guy who's going to lead our players. I need a guy who's going to be intelligent enough to run this no-huddle here. And there's all different shapes and sizes at quarterback, but the thing that we all understand is that accuracy matters. So whether you throw it hard or fast, or you're big or small, I think accuracy is a really, really important thing. So those would be the elements that I would hope both of the guys show in training camp, and then ultimately one in the midst of this competitive battle. And I want it to be a dogfight. I want training camp to feel like a dogfight, because I think it's going to harden our team and make us tougher and more disciplined. We're going to get somebody to come out of that thing, and I'm excited.